Hello, and welcome back to The Exchange, a podcast featuring real stories, real people, and real purpose. Today, I'm joined by Nina McConigley and Matthew Spangler, the playwrights behind Cowboys and East Indians. The theatrical performance will premiere at the Denver Center for the Performing Arts from January 16th to March 1st. Cowboys and East Indians is a compelling new play adapted from Nina's award-winning collection of short stories, which won the Penn Open Book Award and the High Plains Book Award. The stories explore the immigrant experience in the American West and the collision of cultures as characters make their lives in rural Wyoming and beyond. In the theatrical version, we follow the Sun family as they navigate expectations, family history, cultural identity, and belonging in a place where they don't always see themselves reflected. In addition to her fiction, Nina has shared her personal story on the popular storytelling circuit called The Moth, where she talked about traditions, identity, and growing up between worlds in Wyoming. This play invites us to rethink myths of the American West and to witness stories that are often unheard on the stage. If you're looking for an engaging, thoughtful, and emotionally rich theatrical experience, I encourage you to see Cowboys and East Indians while it's in performance at the Singleton Theater. Tickets and showtimes are available through the Denver Center at denvercenter.org. I hope you enjoy this insightful conversation with two very talented writers. Thank you both for joining me. I appreciate you speaking about Cowboys and East Indians, and I'm excited for the production. Cowboys and East Indians takes place in the far off distant land of Wyoming. So that alone really piques my interest. And Nina, I would love to know a bit about your perspective when it comes to the location and the setting of the story and the intersection of history and identity and myth making that's all combined in this wonderful production.
It's a combination of a lot of different two short stories and also an essay I wrote and a Moth performance I did. But yeah, I mean, Matthew and I both grew up in Wyoming. We both grew up in Casper, which is a really interesting place in Wyoming. I think when people think of Wyoming, they tend to think of Yellowstone or Jackson Hole or the Tetons or all these really beautiful parts of Wyoming. And, you know, Casper's beautiful, but it is an oil and gas town. It's a different kind of place to grow up. I mean, we wanted to tell a story of this place and about, I mean, the West is so mythologized. We've got like the cowboy story, we've got the Marlboro Man. A lot of people grew up on Westerns watching the Virginian or Bonanza. And that really isn't the Wyoming we grew up with. And we wanted to tell a very different story of what Wyoming is like. And especially for me growing up in Wyoming, coming from a family that both my parents are immigrants, both my parents did not grow up in the US. My dad grew up in Ireland, my mom grew up in India. It is a different place to be an immigrant. It is a very different place to be. I look at cities like San Francisco and even Boston when I lived there, and it's like, oh, there's a little Italy and a Chinatown, and there's like a community, and it just isn't like that where we grew up. I mean, if you're an immigrant, you're kind of isolated and you're kind of alone. And yeah, and we just wanted to tell that story, I think.
Did you all know each other as you were growing up?
We did indeed. We met in junior high school.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, Nina's mom gave me my first summer job when she was manager of a TV station in town. And I was back from university, from college, and looking for a summer job. And so now, like, we've written a play that sort of figures a central character that echoes Nina's own mom. Like, I never would have imagined that would happen back in the 1990s.
Yeah, and our dramaturg also for the play, Leanne Kim Torsky, she also is from our hometown. So it's kind of been amazing to have this like team of Casper, Wyoming kids that all grew up in the same place. We all went to the same high school. We all graduated different years, but it's like very funny to have this like Casper team, a Wyoming team, and we all don't live in Wyoming now, but it's been really fun to have this, yeah, that we've known each other for a long, long time.
That's really cool, especially since the stories include differing perspectives. And I guess they're all intertwined with themes of belonging.
Belonging, loneliness. I suppose that's related, but yeah. And not seeing versions of ourselves in the world around us and how we seek belonging despite that fact.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of my questions is, in regard to what's happening currently, socially, and just all over the world, people I feel are really at a place where belonging is so integral to our health and our wellness. How do you think this production speaks to the times right now, and why is it important for audiences to come and see these stories firsthand?
I'll let Matthew answer this because I do think all of Matthew's work, a lot of it is about immigration. That is a subject that is incredibly touchy right now for a lot of people. And Matthew, you can speak to that. I mean, immigration is central to your work.
Yeah, I'm a playwright, and many of my plays are based on books and short stories. Separately, I'm also an academic. I have an academic life where I do published research. I write published, articles and books on immigration, and I've been doing that for over 20, 25 years now in my academic career. So sometimes my playwriting life and immigration interests intersect as they do here. Uh, I think there are two fundamental things in human life. One is that we're storytellers as people. It's something that separates us from almost all the other living beings on this planet. And secondly, as people, we move, we go places. We cross nation state borders, which are arbitrary to begin with. I think that's something truly fundamental to what we do as people. And so that's reflected in this play and in these stories. Sometimes that produces loneliness. It can produce a lack of belonging. It can, produce a lot of those sorts of feelings that our play is engaging with.
And Matthew, I know you're no stranger to adapting these narratives into theatrical inventions. So tell me a little bit about how you create balance between the stories that Nina brings to life within the book and what we'll experience on stage.
Well, at the end of the day, a play needs to function as a play. So it's not the adaptation's job necessarily to translate literally everything from the source material onto stage. In fact, when you do that, you can move away from the effect of the source material and the spirit of the source material because you're taking it from one medium to another, which it wasn't intended to be in. So you really do have to sort of rewrite it. And that's the magic of adaptation, is rewriting that source material so that it works in the theatrical form. In this case, we have two short stories, Nina's Moth piece, and an autobiographical essay that we've woven together for the play. So this play doesn't exist in this narrative form in any of those other sources. And I think this is what adaptation is really about. You take that sort of source material and find a way to dramatize it and make it work as theater. And I think that's really exciting. And then an audience comes and watches it collectively, which is unique relative to the experience of reading, which we do in a solo endeavor. But when we go to the theater, we're in a room with all these other people, and inevitably their response to the play conditions our response to the play. I know, even in the summit, we had a summit reading 2 years ago, and you'd see somebody respond in a way, and their response would affect you. That even happened to me as a writer. I'd look at somebody else in the room having a response to this play, and I could feel it conditioning mine. And that's kind of the magic of theater and why it's a unique art form.
I feel your passion for it. That's great. And Nina, what is that experience like for you? You have firsthand knowledge, obviously, of these stories. Some of them are your own stories. And so when the audience is there in real time reacting to situations and emotions that you've embedded into this framework, how does that feel as the author?
It feels really strange because I'm used to being a fiction writer that people are reading my work, in bed alone. I don't see their reactions at all. And to experience a real-time reaction is really powerful. It's also surprising. I think the summit, I think both Matthew and I had been working on it for so long at that point. And then it was a real surprise to me that people were emotional and crying. I don't know why I didn't think of it as being sad. I don't know. I don't know why what I was thinking it was, but um it was really different to see the reaction. And it was really powerful to see the play with my mother. I mean, she came and she's read my fiction for years. And I mean, maybe because I've never watched her read like I've never sat in real time and watched her read a story of mine. Um, it was wild to see her cry. I honestly, I feel like she's actually pretty stoic and doesn't react, and is, if anything, she's my harshest critic. Um, it was she was sitting in front of me in the summit, and I could see her crying, and it was really shocking to me, and really surprising. And I think that's also the power of, we have an incredible group of actors. And I mean, we wrote the words, and I am really proud of what we've written, but honestly, they transform it, and they bring a kind of magic that I just don't think, like, reading it is just, it's just not the same. I mean, we've just been so lucky with our actors as well.
Mhm.
Why do you think it's so important that people feel what it's like and witness these characters navigating, multiple identities and cultural continuity and loneliness? Why is that important for people to sit in the same space and experience all together, as opposed to just reading it in their bed alone?
I mean, I think there's a community when you're in a theater and you're all experiencing a similar emotion. There's some real power in that. And I also think that we are telling a story that I think people just haven't considered. I know that I, when Cowboys came out as a book, I did a lot of book clubs, and a lot of people, very nice people, told me, like, "Oh, I've never thought about race in Wyoming." And I thought, that's because you've never had to. You've never had to think about it. Like, you walk into a room and you are in the majority all the time. And I'm really glad you're having to sit and think about someone else's experience and what it must be like for someone to navigate difference on a daily basis. And I think our play really brings that to the forefront. It's about not just race, but gender and other things, what it's like to be different. And I really think, again, there's a power in experiencing that in a room with people where you're really having to question a lot of assumptions you've made about a state like Wyoming and the West, and the American West.
I think that's very poignant. So thank you for that. So this play is going to be running from January 16th through March 1st. So nice long run time at the Singleton Theater. I'm really excited about it. I'm assuming this is not either of you's first time in Denver. Is that right?
No, yeah,
Yeah, no.
tell the story.
We spent a bit of time in Denver over the years. Well, as you know, we both grew up in Wyoming, and in fact, the first professional play I ever saw was at the Denver Center, and that's amazing. It was a production of The Matchmaker that the school would rent buses and take students down, and you spent the night in Denver and went to a play and Casa Bonita and the zoo. And so whatever, and that was the first time I'd been to a show of that level of theater, and I remember it very well. So it's seriously magical now, like at this point in my career as an artist, to be able to do a piece of theater in the same venue where all those years ago, like I went as a kid and saw my first play of that type. So it's amazing.
Yeah, and I grew up, I mean, again, for us growing up in Casper, Denver was the biggest city. So we grew up, my mom really needed a city fix all the time, so we went pretty regularly. And we also, that was the only Indian grocery store was in, at the time, was in, there was only one back in the day. Now Denver is much more diverse, but there was one Taj Mahal Grocers was it. And we would come and grocery shop, and I remember, like, driving home on, like, sitting on a sack of rice. We would go quite often. And same, Matthew and I we're a year apart in school, but yeah, my first big play I ever saw was also at the Denver Center. I can't remember what play we saw. I feel like we saw a Shakespeare play, but we came up and we went to the old spaghetti factory and went to a play and experienced it. So it's kind of wild to be in the Denver Center. And if you had told me last week, we were sitting in rehearsal, and we were practicing putting on saris, and to look in the rehearsal room and just see two women in saris standing on the stage, it was kind of emotional for me because I thought, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Shakespeare, but I grew up seeing like Shakespeare and very traditional plays, and to see these saris on the stage at the Denver Center is something my
Mm,
younger self couldn't have imagined, just couldn't have
mm.
imagined that. I mean, it's
Wow.
it's kind of wild to see, you know?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm like cheering in the background because the old spaghetti factory was my first job in high school. So
Oh, wow. Nice.
all interconnected. As you're talking about like going on the Moth and sharing your story, and Matthew is, you're speaking about being a playwright and doing these adaptations. The cultural significance of storytelling is just so profound. And I would
Mm.
love to know, just as a final question for both of you, how did you gather the strength and courage to begin to tell your own story?
I think writers are a little bit of already a tiny bit observers and outsiders, and I did grow up in that role, I think, a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong, I also had a great growing up in Wyoming in a lot of ways. It's a beautiful place to grow up. But I always I make a joke that writing Cowboys and East Indians was kind of a form of therapy because there was a lot of ways that I wanted to make sense of how I grew up and where we grew up. And when people talk about stories from the American West, the definition was used to be so narrow. And I feel like, I really appreciate that the Denver Center in plays like The Whale and The Laramie Project and American Mariachi and Rattlesnake Cake, like they're at least trying to diversify what an American West story is. And I think for me, it was the only way I knew how to make sense of like, some hard times as a kid as well, of microaggressions and weird experiences I had. Um, and so for me, it's just been a real kind of catharsis to write these stories and to tell the stories and be like, no, the West is not all a white cowboy story. And I really need you to know that.
Mm.
I need you to know that. Matthew, I think for you, I mean, I'll let you speak, but I think that, God, the stories you tell in plays are also just not stories that are traditionally told in theater.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm in England now. I just stepped out of rehearsal for this other play of mine, which is called The Beekeeper of Aleppo. It's also based on a book, and I've co-written this play with a Syrian woman who lives here in England. Nesreen Al-Rifai is her name, and she literally just stepped away while I'm doing this, and then I'm going back into rehearsal. So in any event, I mentioned that to you to say that I co-write a lot of my plays in recent years, and it's something I really like doing. I think there's certain skills that I bring to a writer's table as a reader, because I read a lot of fiction, and then I like writing theater based on books and short stories. And then it can just be a magical process to co-write a piece that might be very different from my own lived experience, but then in other ways where it's very similar, in sometimes surprising ways. For example, in Cowboys and East Indians, one of the characters, the Indian female character, she doesn't like Wyoming. And the language that she brings to disliking Wyoming, at first, she grows to like it across the course of the play, but initially she doesn't. And a lot of her language is like the same that my mother would have said, and so you discover those things and you're like, oh, through co-writing, even as a writer, you discover these kind of surprising moments of similarity or whatever. And I just really like the collaborative process of writing a piece.
Well, thank you. Those surprising moments of similarity are what I'm most looking forward to when I see Cowboys and East Indians. And again, it will be playing from January 16th through March 1st at the Singleton Theater at DCPA. Thank you so much for joining me, both of you, Nina and Matthew. I hope you have wonderful travels back stateside, Matthew. And Nina, I hope we get some snow soon.
I know, I know.
I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
My thanks again to Nina McConigley and Matthew Spangler for this thoughtful and generous conversation. Cowboys and East Indians is a powerful reminder of how storytelling, whether on the page, on the stage, or spoken out loud, can expand our understanding of identity, history, and belonging. by reimagining the myths of the American West and centering a diverse collection of voices. This play invites audiences to see familiar landscapes in entirely new ways. I strongly encourage you to experience Cowboys and East Indians live at Denver Center for the Performing Arts. Visit denvercenter.org for tickets, and after the show, come back and leave a comment about a surprising moment of similarity you experienced in the story. Thank you for watching, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more episodes featuring real stories, real people, and real purpose.